My dear chosen one, this message comes to you with urgency because right now, in the unseen, a cosmic black ops has been launched against you. Forces of darkness have been conspiring in silence, trying to infiltrate your life, your mind, your peace. They thought they could cut off your connection with heaven by surrounding you with confusion and silence. But listen carefully. This is not a coincidence. This is a revelation sent for you. Before we go deeper, I want you to seal this moment in the comments by writing, "I am not alone." That declaration is a spiritual act of defiance against the enemy's lies, and it will mark this word as your shield today. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, because heaven has given me a message you cannot afford to miss. You have wondered, why is God silent when I need Him most? You have prayed, cried, asked for signs, yet the silence seems louder than your prayers. The enemy has whispered in those moments, "You are abandoned, you are forgotten." But chosen one, what feels like absence is a divine cover. That silence is not God ignoring you, it is God hiding His strategy from the enemy. Just like Jesus stood silent before Pilate, appearing weak and defenseless, while in reality the greatest victory of eternity was being orchestrated, your silent season is not a punishment, but a disguise for heaven's operation. And here is the secret you need to hold on to. Every black ops launched against you has already been infiltrated by heaven. You think you're walking alone in the dark, but heaven is already a few steps ahead, reprogramming every plan that was meant to destroy you. The silence is proof that something bigger is happening behind the scenes, something the enemy cannot detect. Stay with me until the end of this message, because I will show you exactly why every attack, every closed door, every lonely night is evidence that the counter-operation of God is already underway. The enemy believes he is clever, chosen one. He launches operations in the unseen, like a thief working in shadows, hoping you won't notice. These are not open attacks where you can easily recognize the source. They are covert missions, subtle manipulations, engineered confusions. He tries to twist conversations in your family, close doors in your career, stir doubts in your heart, all while keeping you guessing. This is the essence of a cosmic black ops. Unseen sabotage designed to weaken your faith from the inside. But even in the shadows, the Spirit of God sees all, and nothing escapes His watch. You've felt it, haven't you? The strange heaviness, the sudden opposition, the moments where everything seems fine on the surface but underneath there's tension, unrest, spiritual pressure. That's the invisible battlefield pressing against your spirit. Yet I need you to understand. This pressure does not mean God has left you. It means you've stepped into a position so significant that hell itself felt threatened enough to launch an operation against you. That, chosen one, is confirmation of your calling. The Bible shows us this very dynamic in Daniel 10. Daniel prayed, but for 21 days he heard nothing. Silence. It seemed as if heaven had gone quiet, as though his petitions were ignored. But the angel finally appeared and said, "From the first day you set your heart to seek God, your prayer was heard. But the prince of Persia resisted me." Do you see it? Daniel wasn't ignored. He was caught in the crossfire of spiritual intelligence warfare. The silence wasn't abandonment. It was evidence of a battle raging over his destiny. In the same way, your prayers have been heard from day one. Do not confuse heaven's silence with heaven's absence. There are things being fought over you in realms you cannot yet perceive. Every delay, every pause, every unanswered cry is not God forgetting you, but God's strategy being executed in secrecy. Just like in military strategy, when silence over the radio is necessary to protect the mission, heaven sometimes withholds noise, so the enemy cannot intercept what's coming. And what if I told you, Chosen One, that the very silence you've been resenting is actually your protection? Think about it. If God spoke too early, the enemy would anticipate his move. If God revealed too much, Satan would counter the plan. This is why Jesus, before the crucifixion, often told people not to disclose his miracles. The strategy of heaven thrives in silence. You are not being punished, you are being preserved. The enemy's greatest weapon in this season is not the attack itself, but the suggestion he plants in your mind during God's silence. He wants you to believe the silence is proof you've been abandoned. He wants to turn waiting into despair and trust into suspicion. But this is a lie. The silence is a divine disguise because the counter-operation of heaven is already infiltrating his schemes. The very fact that you can't see it means it's working. Look at Jesus before Pilate. He did not speak. He did not defend himself. To the eyes of men, it looked like weakness, as if he had surrendered control. But in truth, the silence was the strategy. Heaven's greatest mission was unfolding, and the enemy couldn't stop it because he didn't understand it. The cross looked like defeat, but it was the ultimate victory. Your silent season mirrors this pattern. You appear vulnerable, but heaven is already winning in realms unseen. So when you face nights where your prayers echo back unanswered, when you walk into days where every step feels heavy, remember this. It's not because God is ignoring you. It's because the operation has gone classified. It's because you are in the middle of a counter-operation so divine, so precise, that even hell itself won't see it coming until it's too late. And by the time they realize it, the victory will already be yours. Chosen One, the enemy has been trying to stage a theater, convincing you that he is in control of the stage of your life. He sets up illusions, conflict in your relationships, setbacks in your progress, whispers in your mind, all to make you believe that the curtain has already fallen on your story. But the truth is, this theater is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. Just like Haman in the book of Esther, who believed he had orchestrated the downfall of Mardochai, the enemy has been building gallows in his arrogance, unaware that heaven already placed an Esther in position. What looks like a setup for your destruction is actually the stage being prepared for your vindication. The more elaborate the enemy's theater, the greater the display of God's glory when the curtain rises. Every time you thought you were surrounded, every time the walls seemed to close in on you, the enemy was sure he had you trapped. But let me remind you of the story in 2 Race to 6, when Elisu's servant panicked at the sight of an enemy army surrounding the city. Elisu prayed, and suddenly the servant's eyes were opened, and he saw the mountain full of horses and chariots of fire. Heaven's infiltration already in place. Chosen One, what looks like a siege around your life is nothing compared to the army that surrounds you. The Black Ops the enemy has launched was never airtight. God has already planted his forces within the very walls, meant to confine you. And here is something the Spirit is showing me. You have been interpreting sudden losses, unexpected betrayals, and broken opportunities as failures. But in reality, many of those moments were heaven's infiltration at work. That friendship that ended suddenly, that was heaven shutting down a mole in your camp. That opportunity that collapsed at the last moment, that was God rerouting you before the enemy could sabotage it from the inside. Think about Joseph. His brothers believed they had destroyed him by selling him into slavery. But it was heaven's infiltration all along, positioning him in Egypt for the moment of famine. What others called betrayal, heaven called positioning. The silence of God in your situation is not a void. It is a shield. If you had heard everything heaven was doing on your behalf, the enemy would have intercepted it, planting more doubt and more fear into your spirit. That's why, in your darkest hours, you must learn to discern between abandonment and strategy. God's silence is not indifference. It is divine encryption. Just as a commander withholds radio communication during a mission to protect the soldiers in the field, God withholds information from the enemy to secure your victory. What feels like nothing happening is actually everything happening, hidden in plain sight. Chosen one, let's go deeper. The enemy thrives on fear and confusion, and when God seems silent, it becomes his opportunity to speak the loudest. He tries to fill your head with lies. You're forgotten. You're wasting time. You prayed for nothing. But remember, Jesus himself endured this in the wilderness when the devil tempted him during a season of hunger and silence. The enemy always looks for the silence to inject poison. That's why your greatest battle right now is not just external, but internal. The war for your mind, your faith, your ability to keep trusting even when you cannot hear God's voice. But even here, heaven has already infiltrated. Those sudden bursts of peace that came out of nowhere when you were breaking down, that was not random. That was heaven dispatching an angel to touch your spirit. Those dreams you dismissed as strange? Some of them were encrypted messages, showing you glimpses of what God is already arranging. Just as Jacob saw angels ascending and descending on a ladder in a dream, God has been showing you that the traffic of heaven has never stopped moving around your life. The silence you hear in the natural is only the sound of activity hidden from your enemy. Think about it, chosen one. If you had always heard God audibly, if every prayer had been answered instantly, would faith even be necessary? Faith is proven in silence. Trust is tested in the absence of immediate answers. Hebrews 11 reminds us that without faith it is impossible to please God. And faith is not faith when everything is visible. It is faith precisely when heaven is quiet, yet your spirit chooses to believe. That's why the silence of God is not a weakness of His presence, but the proof of your promotion. Heaven trusts you enough to let you walk by faith, not by sight, because the counter-operation is already ensuring your victory. This is why, chosen one, the very battles that have made you cry the hardest are actually the places where heaven is about to reveal the greatest infiltration. The enemy thinks he has buried you in silence, but seeds always grow underground, where no one can see. What feels like the dirt of defeat is actually the soil of destiny. Just as Jesus was silent in the tomb for 3 days, heaven was waging the ultimate counter-operation, and when the stone rolled away, resurrection power erupted. Your silent season is not your grave. It is your germination. Something is being prepared in secret, and soon it will break through for all to see. Chosen one, the silence you are walking through is not wasted time. It is sacred ground. Every unanswered question, every moment you sat in tears wondering why heaven didn't speak, is a layer of the divine operation unfolding around you. The enemy believes your silence is a weakness, but in reality, it is the covering for a victory so profound that hell cannot anticipate it. Just as the Israelites walked silently around the walls of Jericho before the shout came, your silence is the prelude to collapse of strongholds that have stood against you for years. The silence is not the absence of sound. It is the sound of heaven strategizing behind closed doors. The Spirit is reminding me of Joseph again. For years, he lived in what looked like silence, betrayed by his brothers, forgotten in prison, overlooked when he should have been remembered. Yet, during that silence, God was weaving connections, infiltrating Pharaoh's palace, preparing the moment when Joseph would not only be released, but elevated to the second most powerful position in the land. The enemy thought Joseph's silence meant defeat, but it was heaven's counter-operation all along. Chosen one, don't you see? Your current silence is the womb of your next promotion. This is why the enemy tries to make you panic in silence. He wants you to self-sabotage, to give up before heaven unveils the plan. His tactic is psychological. He feeds your mind with lies. You're alone. Nothing is happening. God has left you. But if you look closely, there have been fingerprints of heaven all over your journey. The near accidents you avoided, the sudden peace that came out of nowhere, the people who left just before they could sabotage your destiny. All of these are signs that heaven's infiltration was active even when you felt abandoned. You were never alone. You were hidden under divine intelligence. Remember Elijah under the broom tree, ready to give up after Jezebel's threats? He thought his mission had ended in silence, but an angel touched him and gave him food for the journey. Chosen one, you too have been touched in moments you didn't recognize. That strength you had to keep going, that small encouragement that kept you alive one more day, that was no coincidence. It was heaven slipping aid into the battlefield, reinforcing you until the greater victory unfolds. Silence is not abandonment. Silence is supply disguised. And here is the revelation. If God spoke too soon, if he revealed the infiltration before it was complete, the enemy would adjust his tactics and try again. That's why heaven often keeps things hidden until the moment of breakthrough. Jesus did not announce to his disciples every detail of what was happening on the cross because the plan had to remain concealed from the rulers of this world. Scripture says if they had known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. 1 Corinthians 2:8. In the same way, your silence is preserving a plan that hell cannot intercept. The enemy's black ops against you are built on deception, but heaven's counter-ops are built on revelation. At the right time, God will reveal why certain things didn't happen, why certain people left, why doors closed that you desperately wanted open. And when he does, you will see that it was all heaven's infiltration, God placing you where the enemy never expected. What feels like chaos now will one day read like a perfect script of divine intelligence. Chosen one, even your pain has been weaponized by heaven. The very wounds the enemy inflicted are being turned into keys for your breakthrough. Joseph's betrayal became his elevation. Daniel's silence in the lion's den became his testimony of deliverance. Paul's imprisonment became the foundation for letters that would reach the whole world. And your silence, right now, is being transformed into a testimony that will shake hell itself. The Black Ops was launched against you, but heaven has already hijacked it. So stand firm, even when your ears hear nothing. Stand firm, even when your eyes see only darkness. Silence is not the end. It is the camouflage of heaven's operation. Soon, what was hidden will be revealed, and those who thought you were abandoned will witness how deeply you were covered. Every secret plot against you will be exposed, and you will see with your own eyes that God was always 10 steps ahead. The silence is breaking, and when it does, your enemies will realize too late that the operation failed before it even began. Chosen one, the silence you are enduring has been the enemy's greatest confusion. He has been watching, waiting for signs of your collapse. But what he doesn't realize is that while you felt abandoned, you were being shielded. Heaven's infiltration has been so complete that the enemy cannot distinguish between your weakness and God's strength hidden inside you. The very moments you cried out and heard nothing were the times when angels were dispatched with instructions too sacred to reveal. Just like Daniel's angel was delayed by warfare in the heavens, your answer was never denied. It was simply guarded in a classified mission until the right moment. Think about Jesus in the tomb. For 3 days, the world believed it was over. The disciples hid, the enemy celebrated, and silence reigned over creation. But in that silence, the most powerful counter-operation in all eternity was unfolding. Death was being dismantled, keys were being taken back, and resurrection power was being prepared. Chosen one, when you feel buried under silence, remember, it is not the end, it is the secret work of resurrection. Silence always comes before the greatest explosion of God's glory. The Spirit is saying this: your silence season has trained you for trust. Without it, you would never know how to hear God in whispers, how to discern His hand when His voice seems hidden. This silence has sharpened your spirit like a sword, teaching you not to depend on constant confirmation, but to anchor your soul in faith. That is why the enemy hates your silence, because it produces a depth of trust he cannot counterfeit. He wanted the silence to destroy you, but it became the very soil where your faith took root and grew unshakable. And here is the truth: silence is not the absence of answers. It is the preservation of power. When God does not speak, it is because the revelation is too costly to be exposed too early. If you knew everything now, you might move ahead of the plan. Or worse, the enemy might use your knowledge to twist your path. Silence is God's way of ensuring the mission is not compromised. Just like military commanders keep certain operations hidden until the final strike, heaven has kept parts of your story sealed until the victory is undeniable. Chosen one, this is why you must not despise the silence. It is working for you. Paul wrote in Romans 8:28 that all things, yes, even silence, work together for the good of those who love God. What feels like delay is actually divine coordination. Heaven has infiltrated the enemy's playbook, and every trap is being turned into a stepping stone. You thought you were in a holding pattern, but you are in preparation. You thought nothing was happening, but everything was happening behind the veil. And let me warn you, the unveiling will be sudden. Just as the walls of Jericho fell not gradually but instantly after the shout, your silent season will end with an immediate shift. One day, it will look like nothing is changing, and the next, doors will fly open, enemies will be silenced, and the victory will be visible. That is why you cannot afford to give up in the silence. The enemy knows the sudden unveiling is close, and that's why he has increased the psychological warfare against your mind. Do you feel the weight of this, chosen one? The silence you hate is actually proof of how dangerous you are to hell. The enemy would not waste resources launching covert operations if you were not carrying something precious. He knows your mission threatens his agenda, so he has tried to cloak you in confusion. But the infiltration of heaven is already at work. While he believes he's planted spies in your camp, God has already placed angels at every gate, ensuring that not one weapon formed against you will prosper. And when this season shifts, you will see it clearly. The silence was your shield. The Black Ops was your training ground. And the counter-operation of heaven was your rescue mission. You will testify, just like Joseph did. What the enemy meant for evil, God turned for good. And everyone who doubted you, Everyone who mocked your silence will watch as heaven's infiltration is revealed in your elevation. The silence was never your defeat. It was always your disguise. Chosen one, the silence you have been experiencing is not the absence of God, but a divine shield to protect your calling. The enemy launched a dark operation against you not by chance, but because he saw your light, your authority, and your destiny. He tried to use confusion, time, and the lack of answers to destroy you, but he didn't count on heavenly infiltration. God had already entered the backstage of your battle, reprogramming the attacks and disarming traps before you even reached them. The silence wasn't punishment. It was training. You were taught to trust when there was no sign, to walk even when there was no visible ground. Just like the people before the Red Sea, who faced silence before seeing the impossible part, you are on the brink of a turning point, and the coming roar will shatter all resistance. What seemed like delay was, in fact, preservation. If God had answered sooner, you would have embraced premature blessings, sabotaging alliances, and doors that seemed golden but hid traps. Just as Joseph was kept in prison until the exact time of his exaltation, you too were hidden for a purpose. This silence saved you from falling into traps disguised as opportunities. Now, what you built in silent prayer, hidden tears, and resilient faith will emerge with supernatural strength. Like Noah, who labored for years in the invisible until the rain lifted him up, your testimony will be what saves not only you but many around you. The enemy tried to use time as a weapon, whispering that it was too late, that God had forgotten you. But he didn't understand that time is in God's hands. The prolonged silence only made the miracle more glorious. The same God who raised Lazarus after 4 days is about to resurrect areas of your life that everyone considered dead. The depth of your pain is about to be transformed by the height of your elevation. What seemed to bury you was actually planting your roots. Now, with the divine infiltration complete, you will emerge not as a survivor, but as living proof that heaven always wins, even in silence. And what's more, the target has always been your faith. The enemy doesn't care about your money, reputation, or success. He wanted your conviction. But silence strengthened what noise could never build. God made you unbreakable in waiting, unbeatable in pain, and now irreversible in the call. The betrayals, the abandonments, the misunderstandings, all were exposed in the stillness so you wouldn't carry dead weight to the next level. Your desire for control died in the waiting, and because of this, God's plan could flourish without interference. You trusted in the darkness, and you will be rewarded with a glory that will shine in the full light. And then you will understand. It was in the silence that the miracle was born. Chosen one, the silence around you was never meant to imprison. It was meant to prepare. What the enemy built as a cage, God used as a sanctuary. Like Paul and Silas in the midnight hour, your silence became sacred ground for worship that shakes foundations. Every moment you felt forgotten, you were actually in divine incubation. This season of stillness wasn't empty. It was loaded with power. And now the trembling has begun. Doors are about to open, not only for you, but for all those spiritually linked to your breakthrough. Your silence will not be remembered as weakness, but as the moment when heaven began to roar through you. What the enemy meant to isolate you only pushed you deeper into intimacy with God. In the moments when no one could hear your cries, heaven did. The tears you thought fell unnoticed were caught and preserved. God has never been silent out of absence, but out of closeness, too deep for noise. You were being held, reshaped, and taught to recognize His presence in quietness. The pain refined you. The delay strengthened you. And now, what once felt like abandonment is being revealed as a strategy of holy alignment. Your silence was never a void. It was a hidden conversation with the throne of heaven. Now, the silence is ending. The spiritual operation is complete, and what was invisible will now be undeniable. The very voices that mocked your stillness will be silenced as God lifts you in front of them. What felt like delay was God setting the stage for dramatic vindication. Every plot, every whisper, every assignment of hell against you has reached its expiration. Heaven has overturned the plans of darkness and is releasing the full weight of your elevation. You are not emerging from this quiet season wounded and weary. You are rising unshakable, refined, and radiant with divine authority that cannot be denied. The silence was never random. It was a code between you and heaven, encrypted from the enemy's reach. While hell celebrated, God was working underground, reducing the noise so His power could emerge unchallenged. Just like Jesus conquered death in the silence of the grave, you have been conquering battles no one could see. Your scars are now your strength. Your waiting has turned into a weapon. When your voice returns, it will not be timid. It will be thunder. So stand tall. The silence is cracking. Heaven is about to speak through you, and the world will never be the same again. Now is the time to engage with faith. Write in the comments, "Heaven infiltrated it." Declare it boldly, not just as words, but as a prophecy over your own life. Like, share, and subscribe, because this message is not only for you, but for every other chosen one who feels trapped in silence right now. Your declaration will encourage them, and your engagement will spread the evidence that the silence is ending. Heaven's infiltration will not remain hidden forever. It is about to be shouted from rooftops. Chosen One, I also want to thank every one of you who has already supported this channel through Buy Me a Coffee. Your love and encouragement have carried this mission forward, and I am deeply grateful. If you feel led, I invite you now to join those who have already stood with us. Simply click the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Your support is part of Heaven's infiltration too, keeping this voice alive to reach more souls who need this word. And remember, no act of generosity is ever unseen by God. As we close, remember this: the silence you feared was never empty. It was a cover, a strategy, a divine operation hidden from the enemy's eyes. Now, as the silence lifts, you will walk into clarity, into strength, into breakthrough. What once felt like abandonment will now be remembered as the season that prepared you for everything that is coming. You will rise, chosen one, and nothing in hell will be able to stop it. So go in peace, strengthened and unshaken. Heaven has infiltrated the black ops against you, and victory is sealed. Until we meet again, stay bold, stay faithful, and remember, you are not alone.